Oh, very good, very good. Now, here on in the inner pages of the Daily Nation, forming part of our discussion here, NAT rejects bid to change law, vows to skip TSC forum. That is forming our discussion this particular morning. What are some of the recommendations that is between TSC and NAT and the Presidential Working Party? Remember that there are some of the recommendations which were forwarded to the President actually re-engineer or to have a different taste and feel in the education system. But now there is this, NAT reject bid to change law, vows to skip TSC forum. And among other things, the union has rejected a proposal to leave ECD out of basic education. We have Colin Soyu here, who is the NAT Secgen. And yes, but let me come back to you, Mwalimu Sossion, just for us to break the ice. Way back in the day as NAT Secretary General, the issue of TSC and NAT never end. So where do we draw the line? Where is the beef between NAT and Secretary General? Does it mean that you have duplication of roles and duties? Who is more superior than the other?
None is superior than the other. Teacher Service Commission is an employer that was created out of agitation of Kenyan National Union of Teachers.
Yes.
Of course, in 1965 and 66, and with clear recognition agreement on how to relate in terms of collective grievances, collective bargaining agreement is guided by a well-negotiated and well-grounded recognition agreement, which TSC attempted to amend the other day, and TSC has promoted multiplicity and creation of many unions so that they can dissipate and disorganize the voice of teachers. Of course, looking at Kenya since 1957 has had one of the most united, forceful, and thoroughly organized teachers' union. And a country where there is a strong union, it will always register good outcomes in education. So a strong union translate to quality education outcomes. And that is why Kenya has been ranked as number one, was ranked as number one for a long time in Global Competitiveness Index in terms of quality and access the last 7 years. And after the last 7 years, we've declined up to position number 7. And TSC is almost the only national employer of teachers all over the world. And courtesy of Kenya National Union of Teachers. And in 2010,
yes,
I personally, together with my team, agitated for independent status of TSC. It was not independence from the Ministry of Education and independence from the government of Kenya and independence from teachers. It was the independence of the teaching profession, particularly with respect to allocation of funds from the exchequer, that they can be funded directly from the exchequer without having necessarily to pass through other bureaucratic process, which we achieved. But the ineptitude of the leadership that occupied Teacher Service Commission and which occupies up to now, interpreted independence to mean that they are government on their own. They even cannot listen. They cannot collaborate with the ministry. They cannot listen to the teachers, and created an imperial attitude over teachers, and even originated policies that are not in law with an imagination that they have the mandate drawn from the Constitution to do things independently. Chapter 15, independent constitutional commissions, does not mean independence from the people of Kenya, and of course lack of collaboration with government. The Presidential Working Party identified teacher demotivation, teachers' low morale, it's at the lowest, as one of the items of concern. And that originated from the Kenya Kwanza Education Charter, which the President signed and appended his signature. And therefore, a whole chapter on teacher management going into the future is in the report of the Presidential Working Party, arising from the concerns and submissions. And the submissions of Kenyans, which are contained in the Presidential Working Party report, a document that has been approved by the President, recommends that TSC should be refashioned so that it can concentrate on human resource work.
Yes.
That is payment of salaries, employment of teachers, deployment, promotion. That is the mandate of TSC.
What about NAT?
It cannot do...
What about NAT?
Of course, NAT exists within its own legal space as provided for in the Labor Relations Act and Article 41 of the Constitution, to work as a trade union to represent workers, which today I'm very proud with the position they took yesterday. They've spoken the hearts of teachers, the hearts of Kenyans, and the hearts of professionals in the education sector who believe in the Presidential Working Party in education and reform.
Right.
So the recommendations contained in the Presidential Working Report is a product of Kenyans, and those are the only recommendations that the CS Machogu should be able to take the pieces of legislation emanating from that report to the cabinet in readiness to be taken to Parliament. What TSC are doing is procedural within government. It has no connection. I wonder whether they have even briefed the CS himself, because nobody at the Teacher Service Commission can sit in the cabinet. It is only the Minister for Education. In 2012, Mutula Kilonzo, and I remember, I put together a team of legal experts led by Muite, Wanyama, Mosota, and the rest to draft a zero draft of TSC, which we eventually integrated with the draft of TSC. And Mutula Kilonzo harmonized, and we came up with the current act of TSC 2012. And Mutula Kilonzo tabled that act
let me get to hear
that bill in the cabinet. So what TSC are doing is procedural. It is mischievous, and
we still have so much to talk about.
Working against government.
We still have so much to talk about.
It is meant to deepen the crisis in education.
Among other things, the union has rejected proposal to leave ECD out of basic education. A lot of debate has always been there, ever since the introduction of ECD. But then now, Naftali, looking at this, the squabble between TSC and NAT, again, coming up to this particular point, and we have the Presidential Working Party report, again, waiting for its full implementation. How are we going to strike the balance? Sossion says that TSC and NAT, you know, I don't know who, there's no squabble, there's nobody who is superior. But what is your point?
Yeah, there should be harmonious relations between the trade union and the TSC. Because as the Honorable Sossion has put it, all these public officers or these persons have rights under labor relations, Article 41. Every person has the right to fair labor practices. So these labor practices do not only mean that they belong to the trade unions only. Even the people who sit at the TSC belong to a union, a trade union. So what I'm appealing to these institutions for us to work in a manner that is worthy of our education policy is to avoid disputes among ourselves. Because when a public officer is demeaning another public officer, whom the Kenyan Constitution has given the mandate to work for the people, because the labor unions are there to ensure that all Kenyans have fair remuneration, have what we call reasonable working conditions, and form, join, and participate in the activities and the programs of a labor union. So what the Honorable Sossion is saying, he is trying to convince and persuade TSC to lower their ego and come down and discuss with the NAT and the CUPET and every other stakeholder. Because this basic education, this tertiary education, education policy, curricula, examination, university, special education, primary education, everything, this has been given a mandate under the national government. Because when you see in the fourth schedule, distribution of functions between the national and the county governments, this education belongs to the national government. So it is high time for the CS, who now is a representative of the president, the executive, to harmonize these two institutions, the labor unions and the TSC. They have to come down and have responsibility for the people of Kenya, unless if they fail to do that, then the people of Kenya will be disgruntled. Once they are granted, they will look at what is their social contract theory. And this is now sovereignty of the people.
All right.
Yeah.
Among a proposed law, Mwalimu Sossion, I asked this question of among the proposals that the union has rejected is now to leave ECD out of basic education. Okay. That glance, the proposed law will harm teachers. At a glance, the Kenya National Union of Teachers said that TSC did not involve them in the formulation of the bill. That is according to NAT. And then now, the union has vowed to boycott a public participation which was organized today by TSC that was scheduled to take place today at the Kenya School of Government. And according to Colin Soyu, he said that one notable proposal that NAT has outlined in the TSC intention to determine the remuneration of teachers without involving the unions and seeking advice from the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. Don't you think this is somehow overstepping a mandate of a body?
I've gone
and another body?
through the amendments, and I agree very strongly with the views of Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi and Paul Mwite, who represented Kenya National Union of Teachers in the 50-60 case.
Yes.
That a systematic method of killing unions did not start today. It started in 2015, and the leadership of TSC was choreographed to do the same, and they're still continuing with the script. And the problem with TSC is not relationship with the union. No, the problem with the Teacher Service Commission is the ineptitude of the leadership that is there, and with lots of conflicts of interest and other issues. You see, you cannot originate pieces of legislation that outrightly take away the rights of the workers who are supposed to enjoy the independent status of the commission. The independence is the independence of the workers themselves, the independence of the teaching profession, the democratic rights of teachers for their voices to be heard in all things. And so what NAT has decided today, even to boycott, is a strong message. Because on the side of government, because I was there when we developed the charter, part of this legislation is not part of the education charter that we recommended. In fact, some of the proposed legislation, like the teacher professional development modules, if you read the charter, they stand abolished. And any program that teachers will undertake in terms of training shall be paid for by the government. So the proposals of the same, of Teacher Service Commission, actually undermines the commitment of the president through the signature. So I think what NAT is doing is defending the commitment that the president made, is defending the commitment that within the constitution about the independence of teachers. They are fundamentally right. You cannot take away the right to negotiate salaries. And by trying to remove ECD, by trying to remove ECD, TSC are basically fighting the comprehensive school model. And we have seen they've teamed up with other stakeholders to try and fight the comprehensive school model. But let me tell you, all ECD schools in Kenya are domiciled in the public primary schools.
Yes.
That's a fact for sure. And from the views of Kenyans, the structure is not a domain of county governments, is not a domain of anybody. The structure of education system is a mandate of the Ministry of Education. When we talk of comprehensive school, spanning from pre-primary to grade 9, within and contained in one institution, and infrastructure upgraded. The president was very clear that we must upgrade the quality of infrastructure of comprehensive school and deploy teachers appropriately. It doesn't even take away the mandate of county government from of ECD school within the comprehensive school model. I think it's all about interpretation. What TSC is trying to do is to make a case which they don't have, to try and continue arrogating itself imperial powers. And I repeat, the independence of TSC was not imperial powers to the CEO, chair, and commissioners.
Yeah.
It was professional freedom for the teachers of Kenya so that they can deliver world-class quality education for the teachers of Kenya.
Okay.
What we expect is proper recognition of teachers, proper respect of teachers, and proper support of teachers. And the president said it very clearly.
Yes.
I shall recognize, I shall respect, and I shall support the teachers of Kenya. That's what TSC is doing. That is what that's what the president committed, and that is what is contained in the presidential working party.
Okay, let me get to hear from
the problem with TSC.
Okay,
what needs to be done with TSC?
All right. Let me get to hear from Naftali. I'll come
What
back
needs
to
to be done with TSC?
I still want to ask you this question.
Oh, correct.
That the TSC, one of the proposals, the proposal that Nat outlined, is the TSC's intention to determine the remuneration of teachers without involving the government. So what's the work of the Ministry of Education then? If TSC are seeking that sole mandate.
And that is a big question.
All right.
Is TSC a government outside the government of Kenya?
All right. You'll answer that.
Is TSC a government
Naftali.
outside the government of Kenya?
Sawa.
Definitely
Naftali,
not.
What do you make?
Yeah, TSC,
Yes.
the Teachers Service Commission, if truth be told, has been created under Chapter 15, independent and, I mean independent in institution and the commissions. So they have that sovereignty as far as their independence is concerned. They can act not by controlled by anybody, but through professionalism. And according to the constitution and according to other laws.
Correct.
According to the education policies that are made from the executive.
Yes.
Because these programs, when you see a government running, it runs through bills by the cabinet. Programs come up, procedures are created. Then the legislature now does what we call legislation. Because that is what we call public policy. We have public policy and we have public policy administration. So the cabinet is responsible for both public policy making and public policy administration. Now, the Teachers Service Commission is part of the administration. They administer what the cabinet, the CS for education, have drafted through that formidable process in the cabinet, whereby the president sits, the deputy president sits, and other CSs. They discuss these things and examine them into detail. So how can then a cabinet seat come up with programs as far as education policies in Kenya are concerned, then a commission, TSC, dismisses them. It is very unfortunate. Yeah, you see, in his own words, and you will kindly allow me to quote Malcolm X, education is the passport to the future.
Yes.
For tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. Full stop and unquote. The reason why Malcolm X said this is that during the civil rights movement in America, the whites used to get a different education apart from the blacks. The education which the whites were being offered, the children of the whites were being offered, was totally different from the education which the blacks were being offered. So when you look at in the Republic of Kenya, since 1963, we have been having, when we sit for exams, let's say especially KCSE, you find that some parts of this country were receiving examination answers earlier than other parts. Why? There was flaws in the system. But up to the time when the Kenyans now wanted a fair education system, which was free from favoritism and bias and self-interest and deception, we anchored our constitution in order for us to have a clean, transparent education system, which ought to be run by a cabinet secretary under the Ministry of what? Education, who is under the president, who is the CEO of our country. So there is no way, I'm saying things, there is no way the Teachers Service Commission can undermine a program which has been created by the government through the cabinet. There is no way, because the cabinet is supreme. It is responsible for public policy making and the public administration. And a major aspect of public policy is law. The laws are there. We have laws as far as labor relations are concerned. NAT, KUPPET, everywhere. TSE. Why then, how can few members of the Teachers Service Commission decide in their own volition to overturn these laws?
Okay. What does the law say as per the recommendations and proposal from the Presidential Working Party in as far as the remuneration of teachers is concerned? Does it still fall under TSC, under Ministry of Education, or what is that proposal in the Presidential Working Party? Mwalimu Sossion.
Yeah, the Presidential Working Party cannot touch areas of no-go zone where the Constitution is explicit. Article 41 of the Constitution grants labor unions and workers sweeping freedom to freely negotiate. That workers have a right to collective bargaining agreements. Workers have a right to fair labor practice. And so it's explicit as it is in the Constitution. And therefore, Teacher Service Commission to try and design a model of determining salaries outside the provision of the Constitution is actually fundamentally taking away the basic rights, labor rights of teachers. In fact, is an affront to the Constitution, because Article 41 is part of the Bills of Rights, inalienable rights. And if you look at the struggle of teachers since 2010, they covered a lot of grounds. And I was the leader at that time, and I signed all the agreements. I led all the actions of proper employment in 2011, proper payment of salaries in 2012, which was granted by President Kibaki, demand for the CBA in 2013, which Uhuru Kenyatta's administration was reluctant to grant, but after 36 days of nationwide strike in 2015, we eventually signed a 54 billion CBA. That right is there. And that provision to freely negotiate is provided in the Constitution. And the Constitution is to supreme to any other law. If there is a statute that contradicts the Constitution, then that statute becomes irrelevant. It becomes null and void. So what TSC are trying to develop is to create unconstitutional laws that do not meet the threshold of the Constitution.
Okay.
The right to collective bargaining agreement, negotiation of wages, terms and conditions of services are properly casted in Article 41 of the Constitution. And I think this charade of activities that we have watched in TSC since 2015 is an indicator of ineptitude in leadership at TSC, poor interpretation of the Constitution of the laws, and I think what the President has been talking about of late, ineptitude, conflict of interest, and corruption. The problem with TSC is not the current act of TSC.
Okay.
The problem with TSC is not the Constitution. The problem is the individuals at TSC. So what needs to be done is complete administrative overhaul of TSC, get those who are inept, and let us have competent men and women to run TSC.
Okay.
The only acceptable reforms and constitutional amendments on TSC is what the Presidential Working Party on Education and Reforms has recommended.
Okay.
For good reason. And if today anybody is the CEO of TSC or the chair of TSC, you must accept to concentrate and focus on the human resource roles of TSC to ensure that you fight for more money to employ enough teachers, fight for more money to promote teachers, deploy teachers, and ensure that teachers are properly supported, properly remunerated, and capacitated to teach.
Mwalimu, we are taking a break. But the NAT boss says that TSC proposal to discipline teachers without being bound by strict rule of evidence, as envisioned by Article 50 of the Constitution on the right to fair hearing, raises concerns about the potential misuse of disciplinary powers.
And that is an item.
Class dismissed for now. Class dismissed for now. We are taking a break. We have a double lesson. Let's take a break. We'll be right back with the Mwalimu Sossion. We're talking about the scholars between NAT and TSU. We just want to understand what is the education system as we speak. All right, Naftali, Nyamongo, Daktari, and Wilson Sossion, NAC Secretary General, is here. I'm told that there's a school called Katuloni Secondary School in Machakos watching, and Mr. Sikoyo says that Mwalimu Sossion, kazi mzuri. Mr. Sikoyo, they're watching the staff room. So greetings from Katuloni Secondary School. Let's take a break. We'll be right back shortly. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. And we are still having a discussion here. And yes, the matter between TSC and NAT. Today, we're still talking about matters of education. I've just also been texted here, Mwalimu Sossion, that will you ever have the Sossion, you remember what I'm about to say? The holiday. The Sossion holiday.
You know, Sossion holiday was enjoyed by students and teachers. Those were moments during the nationwide strike,
yes,
which was widely supported by students and supported by teachers and students.
You were working way back then.
Used to call it Sossion holiday, and when asked when they are going back to school, they so they will go back when Sossion tells them.
I'm so sure Naftali.
And I remember one time when Kaimenyi closed down all the schools when you were in the middle of strike, and we had completed.
Naftali, were you a beneficiary?
Negotiations.
Yeah, of course.
A beneficiary of Sossion holiday.
Yeah.
I ordered resumption of learning in all schools, learners to report to school on a Thursday, and all teachers to report to school on a Thursday, 8 o'clock. That was Wednesday in the afternoon, and they all reported.
Yes.
And those were them days. But now on disciplinary issue of teachers, as recommended by TSC,
yes,
it is fighting the recommendation in the Presidential Working Party. The Presidential Working Party was made up of 49 eminent professionals in Kenya, including legal scholars, grounded legal scholars. And therefore, therefore, it recommended that teachers...
Let me come to Namigo. Let me come to Nyamongo, if you don't mind.
No, allow me to finish that.
I'll come back to you. There's a question I asked him. In as far as the Constitution and disciplinary action is concerned, this is up to the Article 50 of the Constitution on fair hearing and administration of disciplinary action. But now, the question here is that there we have it. The Sec-Gen also said that TSC is, the Constitution as per, as bound, that's according to you, that TSC proposes to discipline teachers without being bound by strict rules of evidence as envisioned by Article 50 of the Constitution of fair hearing. And he said that TSC has been disciplining teachers without, by hearing the appeals and thereafter making it upon themselves. But the issue of fair hearing is here. The Constitution is paramount, and all of us must adhere to that. Naftali, at this particular point, where do we draw the line?
Yeah, it is morally bad in practice and in principle. To bring an act of parliament or use any statute to undermine the supreme law.
Yes.
When you talk about fair hearing under Article 50, fair hearing is under the Bill of Rights. Now, remember, Article 24 envisages limitations of rights and fundamental freedoms. There is a procedure that indeed, even if we have rights and fundamental freedoms, some other time they can be limited. But I want us to look at Article 25, which now contemplates rights and fundamental freedoms that shall not be limited. And one item, part of the items herein is a right to fair trial, where now we find fair hearing. That fair hearing, fair trial cannot be limited. It is a fundamental right that cannot be. There is no way you can discipline a teacher or any member of the staff in the education system without a fair hearing. That one, no. Remember, when you look at Article 2 of the Constitution, and in particular sub-Article 4, the Constitution says any law, including customary law, that is inconsistent with this Constitution is void to the extent of the inconsistency. And an act or omission in contravention to this Constitution is unlawful. is invalid. Sheria yoyote ikiwemo ile ya kimila au desturi, ile ambayo inapayuka kwa hii katiba, ni utupu kwenye kadri ya upayukaji huo. Na tendo lolote au upungufu ulio kinyume na hii katiba ni batili. So it means the constitution is the supreme, no statute. The TSC must not come with any statute to undermine what the framers of the constitution envisages under the supremacy. The constitution has the power to dominate and defeat another law, because it is the mother. These other statutes are kids, are the young ones. And the constitution is clear. Even if someone goes to the High Court and institute court proceedings, claiming that this constitution has been contravened or is threatened with the contravention, with what you have just said, someone will be penalized. Honorable Sossion is very right. What he's saying is capable of being treated as fact. That labor unions in Kenya are part of our Bill of Rights. The TSC is not part of the Bill of Rights. Labor relations under Article 41 is part of the Bill of Rights. Look at Article 19. The Bill of Rights is an integral part of Kenya's
Constitution.
Democratic what? State. And it's a framework for social, political, and economic policies. The purpose of recognizing and protecting these rights and fundamental freedoms is to preserve the dignity of individuals and the communities, and to promote social justice and the realization of all the potential of all human beings. In his own words, and you will allow me to quote the late Mother Wangari Maathai, human rights are not the things that are put on the table for people to enjoy. They are things that you must fight for and then you protect. Full stop and unquote. So the people of Kenya, through the labor unions, must fight for these educational rights, must fight for these labor relations. The Honorable Sossion has been fighting for these labor relations and has been doing it proficiently. Perfect. We need people who have this gusto, this urge, this drive to save our teachers from molestation. Because we can have a TSC, but a TSC that is bullying. We cannot condone a commission that bullies the teachers, bullies the students, the entire system. There is no way. All sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya, and they shall be exercised only in accordance with this constitution. And one of the ways that we need to effectify change in our education system, it is through that labor relations, labor unions, through NAT, KUPPET, KOTU, and everybody. If we had a trade unions in Kenya having those positive and desirable qualities, especially suitable for the things specified, our education system will not be marked by this, what we call disorganization. We need to see an education system where a TSC, a CEO for this TSC, and the commissioners are marked by extreme care in the treatment of details. Correct. This is not a simple matter.
Correct.
Yeah, they must act in accordance with what the cabinet has come up, because when a bill is being passed by the cabinet, it's not a one plus one thing. It goes into intense research. Yes. Yeah, we have technocrats under the Ministry of Education. So when the CS is presenting any program as far as the education system is concerned, before the president, it is not a light matter, bro. So how can they now, a TSC, use a law, a statute, which may be unjust? There is no way. If any law is unjust, you allow me to quote Thomas Jefferson. A man is not only right to disobey an just law, he is obligated to do it.
Okay.
And to oppose.
We all know the case and the rule about data protection, all right? And now NAT is also still accusing TSC of having that power to collect data from teachers and sources, without following the due process. this all know is going to infringe on the data protection. Mwalimu Sossion, you make on that, you comment on that as far as also the issue of fair hearing.
In terms of teachers' discipline with respect to the presidential working party, it was established that teachers are being bullied, humiliated by the Teacher Service Commission because it is prosecuting disciplinary cases, it is purporting to hear appeals, and therefore teachers are not getting any justice. And the regulatory functions role of TSC, you cannot be an employer and a regulator at the same time. It doesn't happen. So matters to do with review of disciplinary cases was recommended that it shall be undertaken by an appeals tribunal, which is the right thing. It is what the Constitution recommends under the provisions of Article 50 of the Constitution. Fair hearing. That is where you can deposit your appeal cases. But what TSC is trying to do with these amendments is to kill that spirit, which really is unconstitutional. And we think it is time a professional body outside Teacher Service Commission and teachers themselves can self-regulate and discipline themselves, like the LSK. The Judicial Service Commission does not discipline lawyers. It doesn't. They are disciplined by the Law Society of Kenya, which is their peers. So I think the recommendation, this was examined by expert lawyers, and they listen keenly to teachers. They listen to Kenyans, and they've made a recommendation. Why are TSC trying to bypass, to try and kill that, that provision? And with respect to data collection, it falls well within the general rights of teachers, the democratic and political rights and freedom of teachers in execution of their work. We cannot turn teachers into slaves. The mood of teachers currently in Kenya is that they feel that they are slaves of the commission. And, and they've been placed in a precarious position where policies that are unfair and unjust are imposed on them. And this is a threat to education. No wonder we are ranking number 7 in global competitiveness. We slammed down from 2015, now we are number 7, because we have destroyed the very central fundamentals of retention of highly motivated and well-supported teachers. And this has been done solely by the Teachers Service Commission.
Very good.
So I think what the position that NAT has taken is an eye-opener to the executive, to everybody, and to Kenyans. And it is not, it's not a war between TSC and the NAT. It is a war between the Constitution and those ignorant and pushing unconstitutionalism against the teachers of Kenya. Let me remind you, Victor, as the Secretary General of NAT, the CEO, Teacher Service Commission, and their commissioners purported to register and discipline me. You are disciplining a properly elected, properly registered Secretary General of a union who has the mandate of all the teachers in Kenya. In fact, that is impunity of the highest order. What we are watching with this amendment, these are forces of impunity, and we don't need impunity in the administration of Kenya Kwanza at the moment, when Kenya Kwanza committed itself to teachers. And those commitments that were made to teachers are contained in the Presidential Working Party. I'm also made to understand that it's not only NAT that has boycotted this forum. The Ministry of Education has boycotted. And if the Ministry of Education has boycotted, it means those items are not within the desk of the minister. So then, who then will be submitting this to the cabinet? I think this is confusion. We don't need it. We need, government needs to move quickly and surgically address the management of TSC from commissioners to the CEO, so that we put things right. And we have a commission that is responsive, that respects the Constitution, that is responsive to the issues of teachers, and that respects education and respect authorities of the land, and that which respect the people of Kenya. You cannot dehumanize teachers. If you see what the president directed, the end of delocalization, the end of teacher professional modules which are used as business to squeeze money out of teachers, employment of more teachers, review of a curriculum which was also forced. I think those are major steps to try and harmonize and allow teachers to deliver qualitatively. Right. And that we should not lose it.
All right. As we come to a close, Molimo, allow me to ask this question. The issue of e-citizen. It's been the lips of many. The ministry directed that school fees now, moving forward, certain card of schools will be paid through e-citizen. But Naftali, allow me to just get your view on this. What do you make of that directive?
Yeah, you see, if it is a directive that is safe, because mine, I will look at the safety of this payment. Will there be any hacking? So if it is safe, then good to go. Yeah. Yeah. But let me say this. There's a problem where we find that policies are being just put forward arbitrarily. We have three things. We have openness, we have accountability, and we have participation. The reason why we keep on saying let us sit down and discuss these issues together is because of this participation. Participation is the condition of sharing in common as failures or partners. This Kenya is ours. We are failures. We are partners. So when someone sits down and decides that from today onwards, we will be paying school fees through e-citizen, who has he consulted? And if there were consultation, how come Honorable Sossion and you, Victor, and myself are not aware? So we need openness. Openness is that is without obstruction to passage or view. We need accountability. These people have to be liable for their actions. How can you conduct a payment through e-citizens? What are the procedures, the pros and cons? But if it is the right thing, I don't. I don't.
Some parents argued that they pay school fees, through sacks of maize. We've all done that, through manual work or something. So how will it work? But this directive was to all national schools, and all the school heads were directed to provide bank accounts and other requirements. But Sossion, your take on that as well?
Yeah, my take on this is that this is a welcome move. And the only problem is that the stakeholders have not been properly socialized on how to do it. And the Ministry of Interior that is charged with the e-citizen program and services has guided strongly that they are open to further consultations and that the national schools is phase one. So it will serve as a pilot. E-citizen is the part of wider government programs of running programs digitally and government services digitally. With this one of school fees, and with digitization of government services, you eliminate corruption. Let us not cheat ourselves. Corruption is everywhere. It is there in schools, it is in churches, it is in government, it is in the judiciary, it is in the legislature, it is everywhere. It is in the media. Corruption is everywhere. And we think schools should be the holy centers of zero tolerance to corruption. And encouraging parents to pay school fees through e-citizen is part of accountability. I have always complained, and I continue complaining, that we don't have accountability structures in our education system, particularly in the use of money. Since the advent of free education in 2003, Saitoti tried to develop auditing programs and contracted Price Waterhouse to create a foundation of auditing school programs. School money must be audited. School programs must be audited. And the biggest beneficiaries here are parents and students who may have been exploited through indirect and unauthorized levies. Again, the e-citizen, once it is executed, it is going to eliminate unauthorized levies. We have seen uniforms. Now, a Form 1 joining Form 1 will have to pay 30,000 shillings for uniforms. And uniforms are now going at three times the ordinary market price because of the corrupt procurement entities that exist in schools. And therefore, eliminating indirect judges through e-citizen is going to make it easy.
Just to put this question there, why national schools? I mean, schools are all equal. They fall under the Ministry of Education. But why
it is being rolled out in phases.
Naftali here is an advocate of the High Court.
It has been stated that it is beginning with national schools. It will roll down to extra county schools and up to day schools. That is how it will work.
If I get it right, there was no such kind of communication from the ministry that is going to start with the national schools, and then I believe national schools.
But that communication now has come out. But now that communication has come out, it could not be rolled out because, like day schools and extra county, sometimes some parents are paying fees in kind in form of firewood, in form of maize, and therefore those are some of the things that will have to be factored.
Let me ask a question. Don't you think this is discriminatory?
No, we'll have to make it work.
No, this is directed to Naftali.
We must get rid of corruption.
This is directed to Naftali.
Do we agree that we must get rid of corruption?
Answer my question.
Yes, this is one of the accountability structures.
I'll switch off. I will switch off your mic.
Don't be biased on this one. This one will have to work.
I will switch off your mic
because
don't
switch off. Be democratic enough. Be democratic enough.
Who is the interviewer in the interview here?
Be democratic enough.
Naftali, don't you think this is discriminatory? If you have national schools paying their school fees through e-citizen, and we have other schools falling under the Ministry of Education, what do you see?
Yeah, two things. Number one, if indeed it is true that it is a pilot project, that they need to begin from national schools, they need to test whether it will work out, then it is in order. But let me ask you, Mr. Oloo.
Go ahead.
Recently, just last year, the government introduced one pay bill. How come then, in this situation, there was no project pilot to begin from either the National Treasury or some institution or from some ministry, then to go to roll out?
Yes.
Why this one now coming to the national schools only? Then that's where I'm coming to you, that it may be discriminatory and it is very unfair. If payment should be made, if a parent, because when you see stakeholders in the school management, it's not only the school management. We have the teachers, and we have also the parents. There's no way I'm a parent with a child in my national school, and my neighbor here, I'm paying through e-citizen, them they're using what? M-Pesa or a bank or another. These things are discriminatory. And when you find a government discriminating a child of Kenya, then it means the rights of the children under Article 53 are in jeopardy. There's no way children can be discriminated. Do you know that thing itself may bring stigma among the children? Where are our national values and the principles of governance? Who is informing the CS? Who is informing the president? Who is advising them? Where is the AG? This is so discriminatory.
All right.
Let me allay fears.
Let
me allay fears.
We are running out of time. Yes. 20 seconds, kindly.
One, the quality assurance and standard system will have to supervise implementation of all government policies and assist schools and boards of management to implement them same, including parents association. That is one. Two, all schools will be audited and guided by auditors, and all that will work. Number three, children don't come into the space of fees payment in accordance with the Basic Education Act 2012. They have no role whatsoever. So it is not going to affect children. All learners will walk to school, walk to class, and nobody, whether the principal, class teacher, should exclude them from school. So the process of fees payment through e-citizen is a business of the boards of management and parents. Let me tell you, a parent can pay, a mama mboga can pay school fees using the telephone while cooking at home. She doesn't need to go to the bank. And at the end of the day, it's going to be the most friendly, convenient way of paying fees by any Kenyan. Let's accept e-citizen. That is where government is headed to. E-government, and it is within the pillar number 3 of digital superhighway, which we are implementing in Kenya.
We'll have to leave. That is Oloo Sossion, former NAT Secretary General and former nominated Member of Parliament. Asante sana for your valid...
Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife. Don't forget, I'm a sworn government officer.
And I have got Dr. Naftali Nyamongo, who is also an advocate of the High Court. Today, we've just been in class understanding what is happening. Finally, AFCON Eco KBC, this is what it is. We have got very mouth-watering fixtures today. Nigeria versus South Africa. We all know how Nigeria and South Africa have so far played. That will be coming at 20:00. And at last, we have Ivory Coast and DRC Congo. DRC Congo gave a sterling show the other day, and nobody ever thought that Batotoba Congo were going to get at this particular point. Oga from Nigeria, they are going to do their thing again today. With our brothers in South Africa. So we are going to see whatever goes happen here in the stadium today. So AFCON Eco KBC, please stick around and enjoy the game. Oloo Sossion, asante sana for your time, and Naftali as well. And you know who is more important to you as a viewer? My name is Victor Oloo. Have a good morning. Bye-bye.